Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Pay It Forward podcast supported by Payable. Now in today's episode, we're going to be looking at Portugal Fintech, an organisation that is committed to helping fintechs and regulators connect and thrive. And joining me here today is Mariana. Mariana, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing your insights, for Portugal and Portuguese fintech, because as a nation, it has such a huge connection to the UK, for instance, as well, and that kind of seafaring exploration spirit definitely translates into innovation. So I'd love to know a bit more about the history of Portugal Fintech and your operations over there.
Thank you. So Portugal Fintech, we are a non-profit association, fintech-centric. Our journey began in 2016 at Web Summit with a simple goal: to help national startups gain traction with international investors. 1 year later, we introduced our Portugal Fintech report, which is basically a deep dive of what is happening into the fintech scene. So it could be interesting for you, for instance, to know what is happening in Portugal. We are now in our 7th edition, and it showcases the main startups, statistics, and as well as successful partnership stories and interviews with experts. In 2019, we launched together with the financial regulators of Portugal FinLab, which is the first channel dedicated to the communication between the Portuguese regulator authorities and the innovators. Through this program, the authorities provide guidance to participants how to navigate and operate into the regulatory systems, and also they give feedback about their solutions and how they can and what they can do to be compliant with the regulation. The program is now open for applications, is on their 5th batch, and it's a great opportunity for companies and for innovators and entrepreneurs who seek to enter in Portugal and understand how is the regulation. In 2020, we launched the Fintech House, which is basically the hub for fintech in Portugal. It's a term for building in the center of Lisbon with more than 100 startups working in fintech, regtech, payments. A lot of the ecosystem, I would say that 40% of our companies work in payments from all levels of maturity, from early stage to seed to Series A, companies that starting to see Portugal as a place to go. And our last project is Fintech Solutions, that was created as the innovation and consultancy arm of Portugal Fintech to help large institutions and financial institutions like banks, insurance companies that are looking to innovate with startups and to create new digital products. Exactly.
Yeah.
So reflecting, I think, in our 6 years of existence so far, I think we certainly are achieving the goals that we set ourselves, which is basically to connect the whole fintech ecosystem, bringing together regulators, banks, entrepreneurs, investors, and also students and the academy talents.
You see, that's absolutely incredible, because that's how such an innovative industry can go from strength to strength. Because a lot of people probably have great ideas, but how do you make sure it's regulatory compliant? You need to be able to connect with those regulators. And it's amazing that they have an organization like yours that can help them do that. Now, we've kind of had a background to what you're doing, but let's look to the future. What is your mission?
So our mission is basically to offer all the tools that the fintech needs to succeed. And we do that in 4 main areas. So the first, as you were mentioning, regulation, like connect with the regulators for the companies trying to understand if what they are thinking about doing or if what they are doing, if it's compliant with the regulation. Second, corporate. So we aim to assist fintechs in successful collaborations with the incumbents, particularly within the traditional financial sectors, such as banks, insurance companies, that they also want to know how to innovate, and most of the times they want to outsource these outsourcing products and to know also what these other players are doing. Yeah. And third, talent. So it's crucial, and given Portugal abundant pool of talent, our goal is to support startups in their recruitment in the best talent in the market, and consolidating these efforts with also Fintech House. We do job fairs and we approximate the startups to the talent. And finally, fundraising. So we live in a challenging time for fundraising. So supporting companies in this, it's also fundamental. This involves providing guidance on how to find investors, on how to gain traction in the market, and much more. We also host numerous events in the industry. This year we will host about green finance, PSD3 on payments, and next month about embedded finance, exploring how non-financial players can integrate financial journeys into their service. And we'll also answer the question, will every company become a fintech?
See, that is absolutely fascinating, because with open finance, suddenly you're going to have car dealers offering up finance. You're going to start seeing even maybe just grocery shops on the corner offering up those financial services, and they'll need organizations like you to take them through that. And hearing about PSD3 already is, making my head spin. So I'm glad someone's working on it to make it the best regulation and open method that it can be. Now, you've mentioned as well that 40% of the organizations you look at are payments organizations. And I'd love to see, even from an anecdotal perspective, from walking around fintech conferences, whenever I see a payments company, there's a good chance that they have a headquarters or they're based out of Portugal. What is attractive about Portugal from a payments perspective?
First, and looking in general, Portugal has increasingly gained traction as a center for fintech innovation and an attractive market for national and international projects. Proof of which is that last year we had 4 fintech unicorns coming to Portugal, expanding their operations, like Klarna and Clio are both good examples of that. There are several key factors that explain this. First is the quality of higher education. Like English is widely spoken, and this results also in a growing number of high qualified talent in digital and in tech.
Yeah.
Allied, of course, to the quality of life. Today is really a sunny day. We have safety and government incentives, so it attracts a lot of companies to establish their operations here. And finally, Portugal is seen also as a gateway to Europe, especially for Portuguese-speaking countries. As a geographic small country, it allows to fintech to test its product quickly and see if it has traction in the market. From the payments perspective, Portugal has plans to become more attractive in the next years due to a national strategy to retail payments 2025 that is being developed by the Portuguese Central Bank, Banco de Portugal. It will bring a lot of opportunities for the fintech ecosystem, especially for payment institutions, to develop systems that can bring greater confidence, greater speeds, and possible cheaper for consumers. There are some interesting news about this, such as first, electronic payments will need to be available to all in all stores. It will be mandatory. Portuguese bank is also encouraged to use instant credit transfers in line with other European initiatives.
Yeah.
They are also boosting temp to phone solutions and other payment solutions to merchants use it. They are also implementing mechanisms to confirm the recipient to the transfer and the creation of a transfer system using cell phone and numbers or text payments without the need to enter the IBAN that was mandatory still in Portugal. And also, finally, the implementation of new invoicing solutions for payments or from public authorities. So I would say that are exciting times ahead and with a lot of opportunities in the payments ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think. Obviously the UK is lucky in the fact that we are an easy stepping stone for the United States and Canada. But likewise, with Portugal, you have Brazil, you have Angola, incredible innovative hubs that can fuel that innovation with the strong regulatory basis that Portugal has. And then, as you said, you have a very forward-thinking set of regulators, because it sounds so exciting what you're working on too. So it sounds like the perfect match in heaven. Now, that's obviously in the back end. That's the government strings. That's the fuel to the fire. But when we look at people on the ground, merchants, for instance, is there actual demand for new payments technology from the merchants? Would you say that when you go into a grocery shop in Portugal, in Lisbon, are they offering crypto? Are they offering contactless? Is it quite an exciting time for the merchant?
Yeah, so in my view, I would say that yes, merchants in Portugal are starting to displaying a willingness to embrace new digital payment solutions. You still don't see a lot of, for instance, as you were mentioning, crypto solutions, but we see that they are more open to it. But still, that despite their openness, they go for what consumers want. So they are mostly still. Really keen on the local payment schemes, such as, for instance, MBWay, which is basically the mobile payment solutions in Portugal that allows users to make financial transactions through their smartphones. And it's developed by SIBS, which is the company that manage the interbank service in Portugal. So it's like Bizum in Spain.
Mariana, that's obviously what we've heard about, all the work going on behind the scenes from, various regulatory changes. But for businesses that are interacting with payments on a day-to-day basis, do you think that the merchants are particularly savvy? Are they clamoring for new payment methods? And the ones that are they aware of the new ones? Are they embracing the new payment methods?
So, in my view, yes, merchants in Portugal are displaying a willingness to embrace new digital and payment solutions. They are recognizing the importance of updating their payment systems and looking especially for better and, of course, always cheaper options. We still don't see a lot of innovation regarding, for instance, crypto, but they are. I feel that they are starting to have the awareness of the importance.
Yeah.
However, I think that despite of their openness to adopting these new technologies, and you see even instant payments online or Apple and Google Wallet, consumers are still wanting the local ecosystem and payment methods. So in Portugal, they use a lot MBWay, which is the mobile scheme, the mobile solution that users can pay with their smartphones. It was developed by SIBS, which is the company that managed the interbank service in Portugal, and it connects the different banks.
Amazing. And do you think there's demand for it from the paying habits of the consumers too? Is it being reciprocated by their customers too?
Yes, I see that you feel a lot of deep transformation. Of course, it changed a lot and it was accelerated by the pandemic. But right now, you can see, and according to Bank of Portugal, to a report in 2020, that you find that the preference is for electronic payments, bank cards, and of course MBWay again. But the growth of contactless payments is also enormous. So they now constitute almost 50% of total card transactions, which is huge. And also online card payments. So they increased around 24% in quantity on 22, and a significant of these purchases were made outside of Portugal. So the majority was for merchants outside of Portugal. Cash is obviously decreasing, but is still relevant in world transaction value. That's why one of the measures that I talked earlier about that Portuguese bank is implementing is that all the stores need to have electronic payment solutions.
Amazing. And you kind of touched on cross-border payments there. And one thing that goes hand in hand with that is obviously e-commerce. Are there any particular trends in e-commerce in Portugal that you're particularly aware of?
Yeah, I think the trends of e-commerce in Portugal are really similar to what we are seeing globally, since of course the rise of mobile commerce that we now look for stores and we pay everything with our smartphone. Then the influence, of course, of social media platforms such as TikTok that play a big role in influencing consumer behavior, and also in the fashion industry. In Portugal, the fashion industry is the number one on e-commerce and also Amazon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and of course, I think this is as Spanish influence, especially for indie techs. And finally, the personalization and the customer experience. So you see, then e-commerce are starting to leverage data analytics to personalize your user experience, also with AI. the customer experience. They already know your name, what you usually buy. And in Portugal, especially, we feel that we are seeing a mindset swift towards a global digital economy. So in Portugal, we are 10 million. So from day one, a startup seeing that they need to expand globally. And I was searching about this, and according to the data that Visa mentioned, reveals that almost 4 out of 5 SMEs in Portugal mentioned that the goal is to be achieving cross-border sales as the main strategy for their business. So I would say that we are seeing more and more, and of course facilitated by these advanced payment solutions and more security, reflects this paradigm from localized operations to global shifts and global mindsets.
Yeah, and now speaking of that mindset, and you touched on it briefly, whenever I look at payment trends and e-commerce trends around the world, you always find similar geographically located countries having similar kind of trends. So for instance, in the DACH region, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland all have very similar e-commerce trends. And you mentioned how there's an influence from your Iberian neighbors, Spain. How much of an influence is that? And is it a give and take kind of thing? Do they, because obviously Portugal has such a strong payment sector, do the Spanish import some of your kind of trends too?
Yeah, so I think from the SME side, SME see Portugal and Spain as almost like one market. So it's really easy for a company that is established in Portugal go to Spain. And for more on an e-commerce perspective and trends, outside that we can see that such Portuguese and Spanish consumers have the love for the local payments methods, such as MBWay in our case, or Bizum, that is the national methods. But we are seeing that also the demand for other products, or even the social media platforms. It's really similar our behavior and behavior of purchase, like the Spanish consumers as well.
Absolutely amazing. Well, Mariana, thank you so much for your insights, because it's such an exciting part of the world. As we've mentioned, it's payments crazy over there. So thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you. And thank you for the time to highlight what we are doing here in Portugal.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, and goodbye.